So I wanted to start talking about Penn State. And so Penn State head coach James Franklin. James Franklin has had a really nice record at Penn State. He's been a really good coach overall. I think people forget what an excellent job he did turning Vanderbilt around. So here at Penn State, he spent 78-36. He's already enters his 11th season at Penn State, believe it or not. And James Franklin, he's a guy who he has recruited very well. You've seen him bring in Saquon Barkley, Pat Fryermuth, Mike Gesicki, Micah Parsons. They have brought in a lot of talented guys, and the state of Pennsylvania produces a lot of talented players, but you got to give James Franklin credit for the recruiting he's done there. But what are some of the bad? Well, this year, Penn State was not as strong in the trenches as they have been, and I think that's one thing where James Franklin has lacked. They've kind of just become too much of a finesse type of football team. I know a lot of people have made the point. They're kind of become more built to beat Ohio State, and they've kind of drifted away from a lot of the foundational ways you win in the Big Ten football with physicality up front and playing good defense. Now their defense was still pretty good last year, and they've had high-end level defensive players in the last couple years, and then returning this year that I'm going to get to, but they have not played as high level. They have not been as physical, especially on the defensive line, and have not had as much talent on the defensive line. I mean, you look at P.J. Mustipher, Chop Robinson, Adisa Isaac. Those are Isaac and Robinson return next year. Those are good edge rushers, but those are more of like your true speed rushers. I know Isaac does have a little bit of power to his game, but those are more speed rushers, kind of win around the edge as opposed to hold the point of attack, dominant against the run, can rush with power. So I think that's what Penn State's missing, some of the physicality on the defensive line and just some power and strength and beef on the interior. But they do have some talent returning at linebacker. Abdul Carter is a nice player. Curtis Jacobs. I think the secondary is going to be really strong. Kalen King's in the running for probably the second best corner in the country. I just got Kool-Aid number one, but Kalen King athletically can do a lot of things that are on par with Kool-Aid McKinstry as far as his ball skills, covering downfield, turning and running. So yeah, Penn State they have some strong. There is some strong. They have some strong pieces in the secondary. Did a fairly good job in the transfer portal. They brought in Dante Cephas too. Dante Cephas transfer from Kent State. Cephas, a guy who really tore it up in 2021. It's a guy who's got some height to him, some length. A guy that can win vertically. So I think Cephas. I think he'll do a really good job this year for Penn State. I think he'll fit right into the wide receiving core. I think this is a guy that you can plug on the outside. You got Keandre Lambert-Smith, the guy that can work the slot. So the receiving core, even though they didn't do a whole lot of work in the transfer portal, I think Penn State was a team that they really believed in a lot of the pieces they have overall in this team. I think they've trusted their recruiting, and I think adding a few pieces here and there was necessary to really help kind of finish off what they wanted to accomplish in this offseason. But the offensive line, Olu Fashanu, probably is the best offensive tackle in college football. He's likely going to be a top 5, top 10 pick. So the offensive line, even though as a whole, I just kind of got done preaching that they're not as strong on the offensive defensive line. Fashanu is the exception on the offensive line. I think the rest of the offensive line is solid, but Fashanu is the standout guy. But even he is more of it's quickness into his set, free mover, good lateral movement. Even he is kind of missing the overall strength and power. Even though it's there, he doesn't necessarily have a high end. He doesn't hold anchor at a high level. Sometimes power rushers do move him back a little bit, but Fashanu, from an athletic standpoint and the way he moves for a man that big, is a really good prospect of the tackle position. He's certainly an impact game changer for the Penn State offense. Drew Aller likely going to get the start at quarterback. I like both the running backs, Katron Allen and Singleton. Nick Singleton at running back, he is so fun to watch in the open field. This guy is just absolutely explosive. This guy that he can make a 40, 50-yard touchdown run, and he just like leaves people in the dust. So, yeah, Nick Singleton, one of the most fun players to watch in college football. So if you look at Penn State and you're trying to make a case for them to win the Big Ten, so I would say Nick Singleton, hopefully get some upside from Drew Aller, the starting quarterback. Olu Fashanu is just a monster at tackle, and really no one gets by him. So with those three guys, and you combine Cephas and what Lambert Smith can do, so you combine those 4 or 5 guys, I think that is the case for Penn State to win the Big Ten. Just an offense that's potent, and you got a defense that, even though Kalen King is really, and maybe Adisa Isaac are the two game changers on the defense, that your offense is so potent that your defense gives you enough where you can just outscore someone. Even though I don't think Penn State, even if they lose, I don't know, they might, even if one of their losses to Michigan or Ohio State are key games, I don't think it necessarily will be a shootout. I think Penn State just needs to, I think they just need to try to find a true identity. And even if that is becoming a little bit more physical, becoming more of a, I guess, a power run team, I don't know. That is, someone made that point that Penn State, they don't really seem to have an identity of what they want to do offensively. It seems like they're kind of like, we want to be the tough Big Ten team. We kind of want to play part of, we're the tough Big Ten team, and then we want to play part of, we're throwing around the yard, finesse, speed, athletes, get out in the open space, create big plays. They kind of want to be a little bit of both. I think for Penn State, they need to choose a side. I think just getting back to being, if they want to get back to being a power physical team, I think they need to do a better job recruiting the defense and offensive line. But if they want to be more of the speed finesse team, then I think they're going to need to find some more guys at the wide receiver position and then get another quarterback, kind of like hopefully, and then you hope Drew Aller's that guy, and then you need to find a high level NFL quarterback. I know that's a lot easier said than done, but I think that's what they need to do to accomplish those feats. But yeah, Penn State, they should be in the mix in the Big Ten. Can they beat Michigan and/or Ohio State? I think is the big question. How do they match up with Michigan, Ohio State? I know a lot can change in 1 year. Last year, you were saying that after the Michigan Ohio State game, if you were saying that this year Penn State would beat both of them, I think that'd be a little crazy. It's funny how if you say Penn State's going to beat Michigan and Ohio State this year, it's a little crazy. But if you say they're going to beat one or the other, that sounds more reasonable. Like that just goes to show with that statement, or with thinking about both sides of that, it just goes to show how kind of like torn people are with Penn State. Like how there's people that are believing in them being a Big Ten title contender, but then there's people that could not, like them seeing. And I guess I'm on that side. Them seeing them beating Michigan and Ohio State seems just super far-fetched. So I think that they could beat one or the other. I think that, honestly, they probably match up with Ohio State a little bit better. I think they'd have a better chance of beating Ohio State just because of no C.J. Stroud. I think if they were get into, I just said they might not get into shootouts, but last year's game against Ohio State kind of was a shootout. You saw Ohio State kind of open it up or blow it open at the end. I think if they were to get into a shootout, maybe if Drew Aller makes some more plays than Kyle Cord or whoever's a quarterback for Ohio State, then I think that Penn State gets a crucial stop. Then I think Penn State could steal one from Ohio State. I just have a hard time seeing them match up with Michigan. Michigan's kind of a mismatch for Penn State is the same way that Michigan's a mismatch for Ohio State. Michigan's just become so strong at the line of scrimmage and done such a good job at getting a strong, cohesive unit on the offensive line that it's really tough for Penn State's D-line. It's tough for Ohio State's D-line. So, I think Michigan Penn State will be a little closer this year. I think it is at Penn State. I would give Michigan the edge just because the way Michigan dominated them last year, it's going to be more so. Like the offensive line, you could argue is even better. Michigan arguably has improved overall as a roster and defensively. But yeah, I think if they're going to beat one or the other, I think it is Ohio State. But if they do beat Ohio State, then, I forget if they play Michigan or Ohio State first, but whoever they beat first, it's going to be, whoever they play first. And if they beat them, it'll be, there will be that question, maybe Penn State is legit this year. And I think that, there is, so Kalen King, Fashanu, Singleton, We'll throw Katron Allen in there. So we got 4 true difference makers on the Penn State offense. If they can get one or two other guys, and this team can just kind of gel really well together, and Drew Aller can play at a high level at quarterback. Maybe Drew Aller is that other guy. I think with all those things kind of mixed together, that would be the case, and just an overall improved Penn State team and more of an identity. All those ingredients, I think that's what you could have, what would need to be in place for Penn State to win the Big Ten. And then, I'll throw in them beating Michigan or Ohio State first. So, Penn State, there's a lot of things to like about this Penn State team, and I know they are kind of a lot of people's surprise team to win the Big Ten, and I certainly could see it. So, I just wanted to touch on that with Penn State. Thanks for tuning in to the Brant Parshall Show. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show.